to another episode of the LitRPG podcast. I am Ramon Mejia. I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course, author interviews. This is episode 31 of the podcast, already past episode 30, on to 31. Welcome, everybody. This week in new releases and reviews, I'll be talking about The Land Raiders, LitRPG Saga. It's the 6th book in the Chaos Seed series by Alarin Kong. I'll also be reviewing Spawn Campers, a LitRPG adventure, book 2 in the Crucible Shard series. And then lastly, I'll be reviewing Nagant Wars, The Pawn's Dilemma. This is a re-release from a nice author. But we are going to begin, though, with LitRPG news. And in LitRPG news, we're going to begin with the cover art for Delver's LLC Book 2. Blaze Corvin, the authors of that series, and of course, Secret of the Old Ones 2, very good LitRPG series, has released the cover art for his second book. He's actually changing the cover art. He previously released a very nice cover art. He's going to move that cover art into book 3, and he has this one for book 2. It's going to be entitled Obligations Incurred. It has a very lovely lady. It looks like some kind of leather armor, maybe made out of turtle. I don't know, but it's a golden hammer in her hands. Very lovely artwork. And he's also mentioned that he's back on track. He's finishing Delver's LLC Book 2, and he expects it to be out by March. So looking forward to reading that one. Also in LitRPG news, we have Cosmo Yamp, author of The Game. On his blog this week, he has released a statement that he's still working on the second book. He doesn't have a release date for anybody, unfortunately, but he is releasing the cover art for his second book as well. It's going to be called The Earth's Gambit. You can read the early chapters he has for the second book on his blog at thegame.com. That's a THEGAM3.com. We'll have a link for the show notes, folks, if you don't want to go looking through the interwebs for the early chapters, if you can't wait for the full finished product. But again, Cosmo is usually the case of he'll release it when it's completely finished and he's satisfied with it. So we'll just have to wait patiently. But at least he's giving this nice little tidbit to whet our appetites for that next book in this series, which I'm personally looking forward to quite a bit. Okay, also in LitRPG news, we have Edward Castle, author of the Unbound Deathlord series. He's been MIA for quite a while. People were getting concerned, actually. But he's recently posted on Facebook that he's back to writing. He said he was taking some time off to go through a bunch of LitRPG stuff so he can write the best story possible. But he's continuing to work on the second book in the series. It is going to be titled something that I forgot to write down, but it is in the works. And it's called Warmonger. There it is, Warmonger. I should read my notes better. And he's tentatively planning on a March or April release of that particular title. He does not have cover art like the other dudes. He's just announcing a title and that he's continuing to work on that novel. So good job, Edward. Hopefully we'll read something from you soon. Okay. The author of the Level 0 series, Jaron Lee Knuth. I hope I'm saying it right for you, man. He recently contacted us at litrpgpodcast.com at our website. He dropped us a line saying he wanted to let us know that his first book in the Next World series is out on audiobook, and he wanted us to give it a listen and just write a review if you liked it or not. So he actually dropped us a free audiobook file. So I'm like, oh, that's always nice. But I had actually noticed this. I just kind of forgot to announce it last week, so I apologize for that. But it's a really good story. I've actually already reviewed the first book in this series quite a long time ago. It's on my recommendation list for LitRPG stories already. The author said that he just recently discovered LitRPG, like a lot of authors, but he'd already kind of written stories within the genre, which is why I like the story. Because it's more borders on the cyberpunk world in the earlier portions of the story, and then once they get into the game world, it's absolute LitRPG. And I don't think the author intentionally wrote it that way, but it totally fits all the few guidelines that we have for that kind of storyline. Plenty of game mechanics shown, level up notifications, damage stuff. It's an MMO world. It's a really open world sandbox with lots of classes. It's a really cool, fun story just on its own. And since I had a chance to listen to the audiobook, I can tell you right at that, it was an enjoyable experience. My only kind of quibble with it was that the narrator's voice sounded a little older than I thought the main character should sound. That's my only small little quibble, but it was a really good, audiobook narration otherwise. So we'll have a link in our show notes if you want to check it out for yourself. Again, it's the case with a lot of audiobooks. It's even if you enjoy the story initially from the ebook version of it, take a listen to the sample of the narrator. Sometimes that's just whatever narrator they happen to choose. It either works for you or it doesn't, and you can tell pretty quickly. So there you go. And lastly, in LitRPG news, we have Dungeon Madness pre-order from Dakota Crowd, friend of the podcast. Dakota Crowd has released not only his cover art for his second book, but he's also announced that he's actually put it up for pre-order. It is going to be $3.99. It'll be available later this month on February the 15th, which is a very close coming release date, and I hope Dakota is able to make that deadline. So cross my fingers, man. I hope we get it out on time. Otherwise, people will be mad. Just saying. But it's a really cool story. I'm looking forward to reading. I'm a big fan of the first book in the series. We actually did an interview with Dakota Crowd not once, but twice. And so you can catch those at our website if you want to check those out at the litrpgpodcast.com or geekpasspodcast.com. Same goes to the same place. He's on the front page already. And moving on to upcoming LitRPG, this is our list of stuff that's coming up. We're going to begin with The Beginning, Dark Paladin Book 1. That's from Vasily Mahenko. It'll be out February the 7th, 2017. Then we have on the 15th of February, Questing. Also in February, we now know that it's going to be the 15th as well. It is Dungeon Madness Book 2 from Dakota Crowd. We have Viridian Gate Online, Crimson Alliance out February the 17th. Then we have Spitznutz, a permadeath lit RPG, lit FPS novel out on February the 28th. Then we have The Crystal Sphere out on March the 10th, and Awaken Online, Precipice, book 2 in that series, out March 31st. And sometime in there, Delvers LLC, book 2, Obligations Occurred, should also be out in March sometime, but we don't have a better release date for you, so we're just letting you know. And there we go. On to new releases and reviews. Okay, new releases and reviews, folks. This is the place where I read LitRPG stuff and I tell you my opinion on it, give you a review of these particular stories. And this week we're going to begin with The Land Raiders, a LitRPG Saga, Book 6 in the Chaos Seed series, written by Alaron Kong, another friend of the podcast. We've done, I think we're on 4 interviews with him for the podcast. You can check all that stuff out at the website, of course. Now, in Book 6, it is 447 pages long. It is $5.99, and oddly enough, it is not available on Kindle Unlimited. This is the first time in this entire series that one of the books in the KNC series hasn't been on Kindle Unlimited. The author made the decision for whatever reason, but letting you know. Okay, now this is actually a departure from the last couple books as well in another way. In the last few books in the Chaos Seed series, the author has kind of focused on the settlement building aspects of his story. The main character, Richter, had established the Mist Village. He has a bunch of allies that he'd kind of congregated there. And the last few books had kind of revolved around crafting, building up that village, the enemies coming to the village, and the threat that those enemies pose to the village. But it was very Mist Village centric. In this story, in The Raiders, it's going in the opposite direction. All the action is taking place away from the village. Well, most of it, I should say. There's still a little bit of village, a little bit of crafting, but most of it is not centered around the village this time. Most of the novel is devoted to some really super awesome battle scenes with a horde of goblins that are sacrificing people to a powerful, evil artifact. Now, if you're looking for a good old slugfest, then this is definitely the book for you. If you're a super big fan of like book 1, this is very reminiscent of that kind of feel of where it's very combat action oriented. And for a lot of people, that's a big plus. A lot of other people have noted that this book doesn't have as much crafting, which is something that they'd really enjoyed, but you can't please everybody. I'm sure Alaron is going to go back to crafting and village development at some point in the other 30 other books he has planned for the series. But this is really fun. And as a special note to the audience, I've asked this question to Alaron, and every single interview I had with them, where are the other chaos seeds? What's happening with them? And in this book, he kind of finally gives you some information on them. So look forward to that in book 6 of the series. My opinion on it, awesome, loved it. Stayed up very late at night to finish it. I give it definitely an 8 out of 10 on my scale. So there you go. Okay, on to our next review, Spawn Campers, a LitRPG adventure and book 2 in the Crucible Shard series, written by Skylar Grant. Okay, it is 193 pages and $3.99, which is a little bit pricey, but it is also available on Kindle Unlimited. I would definitely give this, just right at the bat, it's almost a tentative recommendation based upon several factors, one of them being just the price. If you have Kindle Unlimited, hey, give it a shot. You're not losing it. You're not going to risk anything. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited in your country for whatever reason, you haven't signed up for that subscription model, then you're going to want to listen to the review and to see if it kind of fits your storytelling stuff that you like. Okay. I also want to mention real quick that there were a ton of sex jokes in the novel. For some people, that is a major turnoff. For the people, it's a huge plus. But I want to let you know that up front as well, that there are a lot of pretty, sex jokes. So there you go. Now the story takes the main 3 characters onto the high seas to fight pirates and gain resources for the kingdom that they won in the last novel. Also to kill a water goddess. Now, unfortunately, only a few of those things actually happen. Now, I'm going to admit right off the bat, I'm sort of biased against pirates. It's not that I think they're bad or pirate stories are horrible. I just personally don't find them entertaining. I've had this issue with another LitRPG story-ish that I reviewed, in that there was a lot of naval battles, a lot of pirate stuff, and it just wasn't super interesting to me. In the great debate of ninja versus pirates, folks, I'm definitely Team Ninja here. So just a heads up that might be coloring my particular enjoyment of this novel. But there were other issues that I had with the story. There's a lot of sea battles and pirate recruiting, and that's all really cool for some people. But I was reading the story, and I find myself like 90% through the story, and I'm realizing that the main characters haven't really done anything. I mean, they've done stuff. They, like I said, they fighting action. There's plenty of action stuff in here. There's plenty of on this high seas, naval battles. But the main characters haven't really advanced the story, even that far into the novel. Most of the story advancement happens because of the newly introduced characters of the story, whether they're pirates or gods or goddesses or whatever. The main characters don't really do anything to advance the story. They almost just exist in the story. They sort of take part, but they don't have the agency that they had in the first novel. And even though there is, plenty of game mechanics explanation, we get a slightly better understanding of some of the class advancements that the characters have an opportunity to do. The story felt unfocused. In the first book in the series, the first book is a lot tighter. It focuses on the 3 VR players and their dungeon crawl. That's it. Simple, to the point. And that just appealed to me more as a reader than this one did. But again, that's just my particular take on it. If you like pirates, if you like naval battles, this might appeal to you more. Again, if you have Kindle Unlimited, hey, give it a shot. You're not going to lose anything. See if the story appeals to you or not. I mean, don't take my opinion for it. Just go try it on your own. But if you don't, it's kind of a pricey model to take a price tag to take a chance on. For me, it's a 5 out of 10, just because of those points. I liked the first book a lot better. And I hope that the author kind of returns to that, smaller story, or this more focused story where the main 3 characters are actually doing something significant. Additionally, this particular story also doesn't have anything to do with the real world anymore. They're completely stuck in this game world. And that was kind of also an issue for me, in that the game aspect of it wasn't as emphasized. But that's me, again. 5 out of 10 for me. That's my opinion. Okay, on to Nagant Wars, The Pawn's Dilemma by Jaden Hunter. Okay, now this is a re-release of this particular title. We'll get into it in a minute. It is 602 pages, $5.99, so right on price point for what I particularly look for when I purchase a book. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Now, full disclosure, the author sent me an early copy of the novel for review. I've since, of course, picked it up on Kindle Unlimited on Amazon since it's been released. Again, this is a re-release of the Nagant Wars. It was originally published on Amazon in 2016, where it actually did really well as far as like sales and reviews go. And the author actually decided to pull the novel from the digital shelves when he realized that the work wasn't as good as he wanted it to be. Now, if you've never read the Nagant Wars, it's a story about a future where a virtual reality game takes the place of real world wars. Soldiers still feel pain when they're harmed or they die in game, but there's no real loss of life, property, or resources. Now, this has been done before in games, in stories like The Game, but this is a fantasy setting for the VR game parts. Now, there's action, adventure, magic, and even a little bit of romance in the story, so there's something for everybody. And there's also an interesting speculative thread in this particular version of it about what the consequences for this type of war are for the human mind. In particular, there's the thread of about post-traumatic stress disorder occurring for people who are even virtually engaged in this war, because to those players, that war is as real as a real war. They're killing people, they're killing objects, monsters, whatever you want to call them. And that realistic portrayal and physical feeling of combat and destruction and death should have some kind of a psychological effect on them. And that's kind of reflected in a very light way through the story. That's not the big theme of it, but it's definitely addressed as a commentary on what virtual reality can do for humanity as a consequence. Now, if you've already read the Nagant Wars, the author, if you reread it, you're going to notice a lot of changes. The core story is basically the same, but the author has put some serious work into streamlining this baby. There's a lot less erratic places in the story. The story is definitely not as scattered sometimes. But this entire portion of the story have actually been removed. You're going to notice this a lot in the beginning, actually. Some whole scenes have been taken out just to get you to the important game portions of it a heck of a lot sooner, which I appreciated. And some other portions of the story have actually been expanded. Again, you're going to see this more in the beginning, definitely in the end, and some places in the middle. A lot of the combat scenes are basically the same, but the plot parts have been a lot streamlined and edited to heck. The story, to me, is a lot better. It gets to the parts that I like the best, and it keeps me there as long as possible without distracting me with some political leanings that were reflected in the last story. And I get a lot more things like narrative jokes between characters and a lot of things I liked. This one's definitely a better edited story than the last one, but it has that same core storyline that I liked. Now, the author actually has a message for the audience. I've been communicating with him for the last few weeks, talked to him, video chat, and message him on Facebook and whatnot. So Jane Hunter has a message for his audience, and I'm going to read the slightly edited version. He says a lot of stuff, but this is what he's told me is okay for me to say to you guys. He says, something magical happened in the rewriting. The characters became alive to me in a deeper and more significant way. I think that anyone that enjoys a large cast epic fantasy story will enjoy the new book, even having read the first version. There's more dialogue, banter, and joking around, and deeper interactions between characters. I believe the experience of receiving such strong criticism, much, if not all justified, and actually taking it to heart and reworking the book has been one of the most powerful learning experiences I've undertaken as a writer. So that's his message to the audience. And personally, and I like the first edition of the story. I like this one better. There's still a few lingering game mechanic issues, but it's not uncommon. I'm not going to destroy the experience for me. It gets a good recommendation from me. It gets a nice 7 out of 10 as far as a score goes. So there we go. That's it, everybody. Show is done. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. And if you want to support us in any way whatsoever, you can find all the ways to do so at litrpgpodcast.com/support. Okay, again, thanks for hanging out with me, folks. I've enjoyed talking to you, and till we meet again, till we can talk about this thing that I love, LitRPG, and things that you love, LitRPG. remember to go read some LitRPG, folks.